Hey everybody, got another video here for you. Getting back to work on guitar number 6. Okay, so the parts for the swing bar are out of the paint shop, finally, and are all ready to go, all polished up and stuff. So, and what I did, because I hate when in the videos they don't tell you what they're using or how they did it or whatever. You know, what's the point of watching that? So, got 2 coats of brush-on shellac, and I've kind of changed my application method a bit. Instead of wadding up the paper and then just kind of smearing it around in a thin coat, I'm actually taking the paper and folding it up to make sort of a paintbrush kind of a thing, like that. And then you dip it in the shellac. It's not a real paintbrush, so it won't hold a lot of shellac on it. And then you spray it out, and then you can kind of use this thing like a spreader of some sort in order to get a real nice thin coat going. And I got real good results with that. Both pieces got 2 coats of shellac applied that way, and then I knocked it back a little bit with some 400, just real light. And then they got a 3rd coat of shellac, and then this one was smooth enough after that to be ready to go to polishing, and this one got sanded once again just lightly with 400, and then it was ready to polish. And so then I cleaned it off with naphtha and tissues, and then I used this guy here, the little foam polishing pad on the drill trick, along with turtle wax polishing compound, and polished it all up. And yeah, I cleaned it up with naphtha. I shellacked, I sanded, I polished, I cleaned it with naphtha, and then the last ingredient, I waxed it with Johnson paste wax, and both pieces. And yeah, these are the results, and so now it's ready for assembly. I guess that's next. Okay, time to drill out these holes so the screws are a drop-through fit. They're kind of clogged up with shellac and stuff, so. See how that works. Oh yeah, that's what we want. That's the idea right there. This screw has been waxed with Johnson paste wax. I don't remember if these are pre-tapped or not. Yeah, they are pre-tapped. I think I had all this on the guitar before, so I recall. There we go. And there it is. We have a swing bar. Supports the guitar just fine. Maybe something like that. Bridge height's looking pretty good. Okay, I've got the leg bar on, so now I know what I need to route wires around. I'm thinking go ahead and install the strings. Well, actually first clean up this little spot here on the fretboard. Can the camera pick it up? It's right there. Yeah, a little shellac there, I think. So yeah, clean that up, and then I'm thinking go ahead and put the strings on. That way I can set the pickup, put the strings on, clean up the shellac, get this thing oiled up, put the strings on, set the action and the neck alignment, check the neck break angles going to be okay. It looks like it's going to be okay. Might need a little shim though. Might need, you know, 1/3 of a millimeter of brass or something like that. And then once I've got the action set, then that'll allow me to determine pickup height and the amount of pickup shim. And then I can proceed to mount the pickup and mount a depth pick guard. And once I got the pickup, then I can start routing wires and stuff. And I can go ahead and glue the battery box and the EQ on, and the little kill button. I'm going to have to fab up a panel or something for that. And yeah, that's the basic approach, I believe. Because that way I can get the pickup dialed in to the strings once the strings are dialed in. And with this Bubinga, I don't think there's going to be any kind of a flex issue. I mean, this is a big fat heel made out of... This stuff is like working brick. So yeah, if you can bend a brick... So yeah, I think I'm going to take that approach, which means first thing is a little bit of lacquer thinner on some tissue in order to take care of this stuff right in here, which once again isn't showing up. There it is. Yeah, the shiny bits. A couple drops spilled or something, so. That looks pretty good. Okay, got those bad spots cleaned up with the lacquer thinner. Now it's time for some USP grade mineral oil. You get the idea. Okay, all done, and I'm not going to wipe it off or anything. I'm just going to let it soak, so. Okay, got all the strings on, got it all tuned up. And it's looking pretty good, but I think it's going to need some neck shim. As you can see here, action on like number 6 is about 2 mil. Action on numbers 3 and 4 is about 1/2 mil. And everything is all lined up and behaving as expected. So, yeah, maybe one brass shim down here ought to take care of things. Neck alignment was pretty good, and I just gave a little that way, and everything's straight. The screws have not been final torqued, but that doesn't really matter, because I got to pop it loose at least in order to get a shim in there. As far as stringing up this bridge goes, it's a little bit unusual. Well, it's not exactly... Okay, first off, I've been calling this thing a trans trem, and it's not. It's some kind of a... It's basically a headless guitar trem, and but it's not a trans trem. It's got a capability to transpose in tone via this guy here, because it'll lock in, let's see, it'll lock in 1, 2, that's the hardtail position, and then it'll also go back this way, and that's in the unlock position for full float. So, it kind of does a transform thing, but not really. I wouldn't really consider it a trans trem. As far as like stringing it up, you get like one line of instructions with the description from the manufacturers in China, and it's... all they say is, you know, crank it around and shove the string in the hole. They don't really say, you know, what you're supposed to do with the excess string length or anything. And and it's got these little Allen screws underneath here that unlock these individual tuners from the bridge. And at first I actually took the thing out, put the string in, and then put the whole unit back in, got it to approximately the correct length, cut the string, and then put the whole unit back in. Later I would guess at the proper length, cut the string, then just shove it in without taking the unit out. But by the time I got up to here trying to put an 8 gauge on number 1 string, I had to take the unit out, I had to wrap it, I had to hold it with pliers, I had to kind of get it going first by hand and then get it to the right length, and then get it down in there and bolt it back in, and finally got it to go. And then I had a piece of string sticking out and had to get down in there with fret nippers and get out as much as I could. And it's pretty clean. There's just a little bit of string sticking up right there, but not enough that you can actually like draw blood poking your finger on it though. So that's cool. But yeah, not exactly as straightforward as like an trem Steinberger, which also is less expensive than this and does all the same stuff as far as like full float and bridge lock and all the rest of it, double locking and the whole 9 yards. Yeah, more difficult, because see, with an trem like this one, that there's an trem on the carbon fiber, and with the trem, with this one, the ball end goes up here, and then you have to come down here, guess at the proper length, and then cut the string off, put it in the hole, and crank it tight. And like I said, for this one, that didn't work. I had to take the whole tuner out and futz with it until I got it to actually lock onto the tuner, and then put it back in. And I also, that was the second string. The first one I did like the rest. I took my guess as to how much string to leave. I put it in, and it just wouldn't lock. And so I had to use another string. And so I got a second string, and I cut it longer this time. Cut it off back here instead of like up here. But still, I had to take the unit out and kind of wind it by hand in order to get it to engage, so that I could then get it to torque up. Because otherwise it would just keep slipping and wouldn't lock. And yeah, so yeah, and see, with the other type of trem, the trem, the ball's at this end, and you just take it up here to the nut, and then shove it through a hole and clamp it down, and then cut off the excess. So there's no guesswork involved as to where and how long to cut the strings. Whereas with this thing, yeah, you got to guess, and yeah. So I'm not overly impressed. This one also seems to be rather touchy on the tuning as well. It's like I'll be a few cents flat on an E, and then you just like look at it, and all of a sudden you're at F. So yeah, tends to be kind of touchy on the tuning, and kind of hard to turn right at the end too. They give you this thing, which helps, but this thing only makes it about as easy as the trem is without one. So, because these, from seeing the worm gear and stuff inside, there's no way this stuff's 40-to-1 ratio, and an trem is like a 40-to-1 ratio, as I recall. So yeah, I'm not that impressed, to tell you the truth. And I haven't even tried to get the thing to like you know, float and be balanced yet, which I probably am going to have to do. I suspect that it's possible this spring in here might be too much for running 8s, in which case this trim won't work with 8s at all. So yeah, I could be looking at 2 fails in a row here. First the carbon fiber with the body right here not being strong enough, and then now this trim. So yeah, I guess the next thing I need to do is see if I can get this thing to float properly. And assuming I can, then I can worry about the next shim. And if I can't, then I'm not going to build a guitar that can't run 8s. Well, this is another experimental build, basically, because I've never tried out this type of bridge before. It's the next step up from the generic Steinberger R-type trim that you can get online. And a set of 8s doesn't have enough tension to counter the spring that it comes with. You put it in lock, tune it up, take the lock off, and it moves. Boink. So, yeah, and then you got to play the back and forth Floyd Rose thing in order to actually get it dialed in. It doesn't move a lot. You're only off by, you know, half a fret, maybe one fret worth, 1 semitone. But it's enough to make it that the hardtail lock doesn't really work. And there's no obvious way to block this thing off so that you can, well, I guess you could, no, but you got to block it from diving is the thing. So, yeah, you know, unless you put some kind of block underneath the handle here, would be about the only way. You made some kind of special shim that fit right in here and would keep the thing from dive bombing, and then that would be your hardtail lock. And then let me think, am I doing this right? Yeah, because you go, yeah, so you got to keep it from dive bombing, which this does. When you hook it up like that, it won't dive bomb. But and then you would like tighten this up until this thing floats in the lock, and then you release the lock and you're good. This thing won't loosen up enough to float when it's locked. That's float when it's as loose as it'll go. And you can't get from here to here in tune without doing the back and forth Floyd Rose thing. So, and it's really touchy to tune this. And there's no thumbscrew for the spring. You got to use an Allen wrench. So yeah, it's got a lot of disadvantages compared to the Steinberger R trim. And but for me, the fact that it won't work with a set of 8s because it comes with too heavy a spring, that's a deal breaker right there. So I'm not going to do any more on this build, because if you look at the body, if I was going to like take this bridge off and put on an R trim, the R trim has 2 bracket holes that would go here, and then it's got 2 more here, and there's no material at all to put them into. I've installed R trims before with just the 2 front screws, and the back screws, the whole bracket just starts peeling up. So yeah, basically this body is no good for using with an R trim, and this trim is no good for using with 8s. So, and I only use 8s, or 7s. Well, actually, I've got 7s I haven't gotten around to trying yet, but But yeah, so yeah, I'm 2 for 2 on fails, it looks like. First the carbon fiber up there, the all black thing right in front, and now this thing, this bridge. Basically what it is that you've got like 3 or 4 different kinds of bridges out there for no heads, and some of them are a Steinberger kind of a thing like this, and some of them are basically a Strata or Floyd Rose kind of a thing. And the Strat and Floyd Rose types, they don't have a hardtail lock built in that I'm aware of, as near as I can tell. I haven't, dropped the money because they're even more expensive than these guys to get, like, the fancy ones and stuff. Basically, you can get into an R trem for about $40, and then for the more high-end no head guitar trims, you're looking at like 200 and above. These are eBay prices, and the more expensive ones, they're all Strat Floyd Rose style. So no hardtail lock, as near as I can tell. None of them advertise a hardtail lock. None of them appears to have a hardtail lock in any of the photographs. So yeah, it's not much different than just putting a Floyd Rose on and having to suffer with it, or knowing the tricks, such as being able to block it off and then having the correct spring rates. So there's no good way to block it off. The stock block, well, you can use the stock hardtail lock on it in order to block it off, but it has the wrong spring rate for a set of 8s. It's too much spring, so yeah. So that's life. Guess it's on to the next build. I'll go pout in the corner for a little while, and then I'll get on to the next build. So, and now I know that there's no point in dropping more money on this thing because it's an inferior product. Why spend? I think this was 56 versus 40 kind of a thing, and it's like, well, why do that if the cheaper unit's better? So, yeah, this was basically, I was testing a new piece of hardware, and it's inferior. So now I know. And if you watch this, then now you know too. Anyway, until the next one, everybody, have a good one. And hopefully all those pieces are long enough to actually splice together.